Happy Tuesday, everybody. We are hopefully going to see some more folks here because this was a uh, full tasting, and yeah, I'm not sure where everybody's at tonight. Yeah, we've got four KWM folks in the house tonight, which is I want to say a record, but it's not a record either. Um, and probably no surprise as to why. There's a pretty baller lineup here. Since he was not on the last tasting where I wore the Springbank shirt, I did want to just make sure Kevin knew that I had both the t-shirt and the smoking jacket on tonight, at least for now. We'll see how long I stay temperate with it on. But yeah, Kurt's with us here tonight, Harmony and Sean as well. Um, there was a chance that Igor might join us as well, but you never know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. While we're waiting for stragglers, a couple things to really talk to you about first. If you ordered, this is not an advent calendar, or an Uber, this is not an advent calendar. You can expect an email in the next couple of days. They are more or less ready to go. Ahead of Whiskey Global Calgary this weekend, which is going to be kind of a lot of work for us as well. So Harmony and Sammy and the rest of the team have been working hard to pull those off, stickering and whatnot. So they're just about ready to go. We have also set up, because I know they are hard to search for on our website. Um, what I should do is actually just show you, and whoever is watching this on YouTube after the fact, but we've got a landing page now. So if you go onto our website and under tastings, you scroll down, you have to go to our tasting page because that's how we have to work around on them. But there's now a Whiskey Advent tasting page. We're going to add some links to this, like links to the recordings, et cetera, et cetera. But if you click on this, it can take you directly to the spot to buy the individual tastings or the Still Not an Advent calendar. And you can search for it, which is something kind of fun, although you can't hit enter. But if you start typing Scotch, whiskey, or Advent, it'll come up first in the search. And you just click on it and it takes you to that page. So um, slow evolution for stuff like that for us, but we're getting there. Also, to quickly mention, mostly killing time to see if we get a handful more stragglers turning up. Upcoming tastings next week. Really excited about the Macbeth tasting. Um, we're not going to have anyone from Elixir on this or from the theater industry. So whoever my co-host on this is probably going to have to do some Macbeth related research with me, diving into the characters. Maybe we could even come in character. I'm not not throwing that out there, not one for costumes, but we could. So that's coming up. It's a pretty cool range, including a 45, I think, or is it 43 or 45-year-old Boonhaven, 45. Some old Kleinlish Highland Park. Our festivals are basically sold out. There's like a handful of tickets left for them. We've got a few more tickets left for our Glenfarclas tasting with Deb next Friday. So this is Thursday, Friday. You could go to the festival and then to the Glenfarclas tasting. Ben Romick sold out. Nick Neen, we've also got a Nick Neen tasting coming up with the founder of the distillery, Annabelle Thomas. I believe Diageo sold out, so let's skip past that. And Cadenhead's, still some spots for Cadenheads, which is surprising. There's a 40-year-old Glenmorangie in there. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say the Glenmorangie, but there's a 40-year-old mystery Highlands single malt in there. And then after that, we're really just into the Advent tastings. But that's not why you're here. You're here to learn about Whiskyland and all things whiskey sponge / decadent drinks. Um, I actually went on to Angus's former blog site today to see if by any slim chance there had been a recent post, and there is not. Um, the last post on there, the last one was about a day in the life of Dr. Bill Lumsden's alter ego, I presume. But this is like one of the things Angus did for a long time. For a long time, he did it anonymously. And it was quite a satirical take on the industry, uh, poking fun, sometimes just like flat out silly. other times to try to make a point. It was very, some very firm satire. My favorite one being that Jim Murray had just concluded the auction for Whiskey of the Year for the Whiskey Bible, or something to that effect, which was quite humorous. Uh, but this evolved into a side business for him, about actually doing some bottlings. And I think in some ways it probably started as a lark, but it just kind of kept going from there. Um, and yeah, today they've got a range of whiskeys. They had Whiskey Sponge. We're going to do one Whiskey Sponge. The Whiskey Sponge range was retired, but now they've got Decadent Drams, Old Orkney, Whiskyland, um, and they've got some fun whiskeys. And one of the things I was thinking about today is the roots of a lot of, especially these older independent bottlings that we're sampling tonight, where a lot of these came from is from a difficult time in the industry when they were 10 years out from essentially the collapse that happened in the early 80s. And companies were willing to trade off stock or willing to sell off stock, not worried about whether someone down the line might bottle it as a single malt. Because, looking at a lot of these whiskeys, like the Glen Grant, like the Tormore, like the Ben Nevis, these are things that were not sexy, really until the last 5 to 10 years. And there was a time when the industry relied on the secondary market, on blenders to lap up this stuff. Even the Springbank we're going to sample here later, um, I have to do some digging, but I think that goes back to the just before Headley Wright, or around the time Headley Wright returned to Springbank. And like they were selling off everything. Headley's nephew, Mark Wright, was basically giving stuff away. And uh, I remember talking with Peter Curry and Ranald in the like mid to late 2000s about that. And it was like, in some ways, looking back, it was kind of a very frustrating occurrence for the business because, like, even 15 years ago, 17, 18 years ago, they knew the value of these things that had been let go for almost nothing. But it was during a time when, the industry was not thriving and companies needed money to pay bills, employees, all kinds of shit. So, with a lot of the younger independent bottlings we see from Decadent Drams or Equinox and Solstice or some of the other ranges, the explanation is a little different. But going back to a lot of these, like, where do they keep finding these 30-something-year-old, oxidized refill cask whiskeys? Well, there's not really any mystery there. This is stuff that was produced for blending, presumably in the day, put into a cask, assumed it would eventually be put into a blend in a, 10 years time. But instead, this stuff has been kept in cask for a long time now. And fast forward, 30 years, there's some pretty cool, elegant, expressive whiskeys that we get to explore, like this range tonight. So we're kicking off with an Imperial, and I think I've put the range in the chat there. I'm sure most of you figured that out already. This one is sadly gone. It's up on the site, but we'll be taking it down because we cannot get any more for it. And oh, this is one of those ones where I didn't notice that we don't have the full range on here. So I'm going to have to go searching for it. Harmony, do you want to maybe lead us off? Tell me what you're getting on the nose here, and I will find the details on this particular Imperial.
Yeah, initially I was getting like a lot of nice red fruit, a little bit of mint, pencil shavings, a little industrial note here as well, like just like hints of soft rubber.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a nice polish here, nice oak.
Yeah. So the website description, to say it's borderline useless would be a bit of an exaggeration. It's very funny, um, but it tells me nothing about the actual whiskey. So I need to go further. I need to go to Whiskey Base to pull up the actual details on this. All I know is I believe it's 44.4%. Um,
Mhm.
and I have not had this one. So let's see if I can get the details on there.
Got
Sean,
a nice potpourri note to it
yeah,
as well, like floral.
Yeah,
either of you guys getting anything on here you want to share?
So far, Harmony made a good call with both the mint and that slight kind of rubbery note. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, starts dipping a little bit into like polishing oils with a bit of honeydew melon on it.
Cool.
Mm.
Yeah. Kevin mentioned licorice. Yeah, I was picking up a little bit of that too, at least on the nose.
Mhm.
So it's in 1998. It's 26 years old. Unsurprisingly, pretty decent whiskey-based score. Um, come on. I don't know if it's my PC, my internet connection, or whiskey-based, but it's rather slow tonight. Refill barrel, unsurprisingly, in just 134 bottles.
Okay.
Still has a really nice lacing of like sturdy wood on the like a nice backbone, but then it
Mhm.
kind of like intermingles with like grain husk quite nicely.
The
Mhm.
the mint note and the bubblegum note that Kurt put in the chat are good ones, like kind of that
Mhm.
like Hubba Bubba or like, double bubble, like that really dusty, chalky old school
Totally. Yeah.
Oh
bubblegum.
yeah, yeah. He said good call on that little mill link between it. Yeah.
I don't know. It has
I can see
nowhere
that.
near the like choking me with some kind of weird wax note that I get from Little Mill. I
Yeah.
think I'm
Mhm.
one of the few people that does not look back on Little Mill and think that was like the pinnacle of, you know, lowland whiskey. I've had good bottlings of it, but it never really got me all that excited.
Yeah, that's fair. It's not one that people typically talk about either.
Rosebank for the win. Yeah, 100%. Those old like late teens, early 20s Rosebanks were the jam. It's pretty, it's soft. I mean, it's
Mhm.
got a lovely nose. I don't know that I mean, we did 4 Imperial casks with Elixir Distillers. Like first blush on the nose, none of this doesn't blow any of those out of the water, in my opinion.
I think I opened it with the
On
23,
Scots.
which I think is one of the not I don't know if it was one of the first ones. I think this is better than that one. It kind of might
Interesting.
In the
sit in the middle
23.
of the pack for me.
The second sip I
Okay.
find much juicier and more fruit forward than the first time I sipped it. I was getting a lot of those kind of spices and industrial notes, but the second sip, still floral, but it's showing some nice fruit, and I'm definitely picking up on those like peach notes that Kurt put out there.
It's got some really fun kind of like old bottle effect notes to it. And I know that this is an old bottle effect whiskey, but it's quite oxidized. Sean, I mean, I've only had one sip of it. It's good. It's got this really antique
Mhm.
profile,
Hmm.
but I don't think this is as good as any of those Imperials we bottled. Like, I mean, I'm
Fair.
going from memory, and like that's hard to like go back that far in time. But this doesn't to me, like all of those had more tropical fruit and were like more decadent than this.
Yeah, I guess it's going back almost 6 years now. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, it would be fun to dredge all those up and put them into a tasting at some point in time, but
And that would be an
um,
amazing idea.
yeah. So the Imperial Distillery, for those who don't know, closed distillery. I believe it was opened on the Queen's uh, Diamond Jubilee. It was Queen Victoria, one of her jubilees, and one of the interesting facts about it is it had a giant cast iron crown on the building, which was, the symbol, and that's what was called Imperial, like the empire. It was a nod to Queen Victoria, built during the Victorian era whiskey boom. And I mean, the interesting thing is looking back on Imperial, I'm not sure it was ever like highly regarded by the industry. But what was interesting was even in, I would say, the mid to early 2010s, I quite liked it. Like we saw some lovely bottlings from Imperial or from Signatory, Gordon MacPhail. And I remember thinking at the time, like, this is the next Rosebank. People are going to get excited about this. And then it would be like so hard to sell people to buy it. Like, and I think part of the knock is back in the day, those old Gordon MacPhail distillery label Imperial bottlings were at like 43%. And so it was
Mhm.
hard to get people excited about them, but they were lovely. They were so easy drinking and they were so inexpensive. And I remember like when we got that first elixir elixir cask of Imperial. We had already exhausted those signatory Imperials. We were no longer seeing Gordon MacPhail Imperials. And when that first Imperial cask came in and the retail price was like $180, and it was like half the price of the last G&M or the last signatory Imperial we'd had like 2 years prior. I mean, that was kind of a mind-blowing moment, but we had this glorious little flash of Imperial. Um, so it makes me wonder where Angus got this cask from, whether this was a signatory one. I doubt that because we haven't seen signatory bottle Imperial for years. And I mean, the most likely place, I know he's friends with Sikander, is that he got it from Elixir Distillers. I mean, Sikander famously bought 400 casks of Imperial just before people started to realize they were going to be in demand. And he kind of cornered the market on them. And I'm sure he traded them off to other people. So if you've seen other companies bottle that, it's probably because he leveraged that to get something else from them. But it's good. I'm not trying to knock this at all. I think it's a lovely bottling, but I don't know. I think if we were to put this up against any of those SMOS ones, they would just show a little bit brighter, a little bit fruitier. Kurt, you've got a Rain Man like memory for stuff like this. Any thoughts on, or do I have to, does he have to maybe made, maybe he can't. Are you able to unmute yourself or do I need to? No. All right.
Oh,
Let me fix
uh,
that. That would explain why we haven't heard a peep out of the guy yet.
ah,
Here we go.
Luck.
Make
Should have
co-host.
kept it that way.
Oh, we let him in and then we lost him.
yeah, we get one or
No,
the other.
yeah, like I said in the comments there, it's old school for me. It's Imperial meets Little Mill meets Glenlockie.
Mhm.
Little Mill always brings a little bit more white flour to me, like standing right next to the mill. I think the Glenlockie brings a little bit of that linseed and get like a
Mhm.
sort of note going on too. But I think you're right, Andrew. I think the elixir ones we got for the shop were just maybe a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more fruit forward. And I
Mhm.
get a note on those ones too that I'll mention for the next whiskey, but juicy fruit. I think our Imperials had a little bit more like juicy fruit gum.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
not,
Jeff, look at that facial hair.
yeah. Jeff's gone wild. I love it. Um, yeah, that's interesting. And Kurt, your comment, now that I taste it and let it sit on my palate, I mean, this does come across more like or more like Little Mill in the sense that it's very dry. It's very almost minimalist. Like I found the Little Mill spirit profile very minimal. Um, and I know there's some people out there who are huge fans of it, like our buddy Benoit in Montreal, who's a big Little Mill fan. But there's a lot of Little Mill bottlings I had that I just thought were like just not great. And I think Little Mill's a little bit like Ben Nevis in the fact that there's great bottlings out there and there's not great bottlings of it out there. And it's quite hit and miss. What I will say about Imperial from this is that given the fact that it was a workhorse distillery for the blends industry, I think that that in some ways has given it a fair bit of consistency and that I've not had a lot of bad Imperials. Like how many bad Imperials can you guys think of? Because they're all from refill casks or ex-bourbon casks. They're just, they're kind of hard to screw up,
Yeah,
especially
I
at this
think
age.
the hardest one that came to mind immediately, and I'm glad that James Bourne's not on this call, though I thought he was going to be, was that the G&M one, the last, not the last one, but the one that he brought for the Old and Rare Festival. And it's not that it was bad. It's just it was completely covered with sherry, and it was just not what we're
I
used to.
liked that as a whiskey, but I did
Yeah,
not like it as an Imperial. And I
yeah,
agree with you on that. I think it was a bit hidden, but yeah. Um, I mean, that's the thing with Gordon MacPhail. Like a lot of their old stuff was filled in sherry. So a lighter, more delicate spirit like Imperial is going to really, really struggle in that after a long period of time. Anyway, I think we've beaten that one long enough. I think we can move on to the next one. So the next one we're on to is Glen Grant, Speyside distillery from the 1840s. Famously, one of the owners was the Major Grant, who fought in Britain's colonial wars in Africa. He, in addition to bringing back a human with him from Africa, also put an African themed garden. Now, that sounds terrible the way I put it. It's still kind of weird, but I mean, by 21st century standards, there was an orphan that kind of he stumbled upon at one point in time, and he basically made the kid his manservant, which I know by today's standards sounds terrible, but the kid might have died or of exposure or neglect or who knows what if he hadn't. But he came back to Scotland and he was a bit of a hero in the Speyside for the longest time. Like he's a bit of a celebrated figure. His ghost is believed to haunt the Glenrothes distillery because the cemetery he's buried in is right out in front of the Glenrothes distillery. And what's funny is actually this is a total side note and not really relevant but fun. Um, they consulted a mystic or an anthropologist because they wanted to know why the ghost was there. They were worried there was something wrong. And so the anthropologist did some research and determined that in his culture where he was from, it's very important the way your body is aligned in terms of like magnetic north or whatever. I don't think necessarily in the north, but it's very important the direction the body is put into the ground. And so they dug him up and they reinterred him along the lines of this custom. And supposedly his ghost, if you believe in such things, has never been seen since. It's an interesting story in just in and of itself. But yeah, the major ran the distillery. Glen Grant, has again been a bit of a workhorse primarily for the blends industry. I think it's fair to say that it was made famous by Gordon MacPhail. I mean, Glen Grant wasn't really doing anything with the distillery until Gordon MacPhail, well, for almost a century after Gordon MacPhail started bottling it. But it was the biggest selling whiskey in Italy. Even 10, 15 years ago, 5-year-old Glen Grant was huge in Italy. So this particular one here, let me put her up on screen. This is a 30-year-old Glen Grant from 1994-5. So it's 2 refill barrels, multi-vintage, bottled at 46.6%. And 30 years of age. And it's, what does the Angus say about this? Anything cheeky? Beautifully natural, refill matured Glen Grant that balances elegant fruitiness with firmer, waxy, and mineral tones. So this one is still available, low stock, admittedly. Kind of to Kurt's note before we left the Imperial, right off the bat, this does seem a little creamier and a little bit juicier. Like there's more kind of lush fruit tones coming off on the nose.
Yeah, and it's actually the fruit's like way more prominent than the last one, like 100%.
Yeah. Yes, Sammy, that is what is wrong with Glenrothes. It's haunted. Explains everything.
There's so much like white tropical fruits, like lychee and like sliced white pears.
Yeah, Kurt's Confectionery note's a good one. It kind of, for me, it reminds me of those like French style crepes with like powdered sugar, a little bit of lemon juice drizzled on top. So you get that little burst of citrus, but that like that nice kind of doughy bakery note, the sugar.
Even notes of spice like cinnamon kind of popping up here and there.
There is like a little bit of a spicy oak backbone to it for sure. On the palate.
Wow.
It's starting to show its age a little bit, like that like kind of slightly bitter toasted oak note is creeping in there, but it's still juicy. It's buttery. Like it reminds me of honey butter on the palate. Honey butter on like, well, if you've ever been to Tommy Bahama's restaurant, they have their like warm bread with the honey butter that you put on top of it. And this reminds me a little bit of that.
I had honey butter on a salted biscuit today, and that's what it kind of reminds me of.
The toasted oak note really, it's just slightly leans into coconut, but not quite.
Can see that, yeah.
Yeah, the nice decadent spices on that second sip. And then it starts to lean into a little bit more tropical fruit, like mid palate towards the finish. Um, kind of like that, more that classic like mango, papaya, but it's light, it's fresh. Um, yeah, I mean, this is just a lovely old refill cask whiskey. I mean, I guess the question I'd ask to the three of you guys, like in a blind tasting or like just approaching this blind, I mean, and this is probably the difficulty with a lot of these, you know, somewhat similar Speyside style whiskeys. Would you have guessed that this is Glen Grant? Would like that be your first guess? I mean, what is that Glen Grant profile at 30 years of age?
I don't necessarily know what a Glen Grant profile as a whole, but I feel like there's a similarity between the bottlings of Glen Grant that he selected over time, whether it's Whiskey Sponge or
Mhm.
a Decadent Tram. To me, there's like, it's something about this malty, very tropical, but also like salty oak backbone to all of things he's bottled that are kind of the signature for Glen Grant when it comes to decadent drinks, pardon me.
Well, I think they're like the Angus profile Glen Grant is a bit austere. I think it's fair to say.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
he's not looking for something extravagant or overly expressive. And I mean, look back at the joint bottling that Igor did with him, the heads and tails one. I mean, same thing. It was a little more on the dry side, very naked, and maybe not like exploding with tropical fruit, but there was always like traces of that there.
Yeah, I don't even think I could tell you what the profile for like Harmony in general, but I think if you gave me like 5 guesses, I might be able to come up with it.
Yeah. I think that's probably fair.
Yeah. That's lovely.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's still, it maintains a bit of a perfumey note on the nose too, like a little bit more floral tones coming out after a few sips.
But that Harmony, your comment about the malt, I think was
Yeah.
bang on. Like this is even at 30 years, like the malt is still a prominent um, note on it. And what's interesting, because I believe Glen Grant is one of the few distilleries that has a spirit purifier on it. So you think like added distillation, added reflux, you should lose some of that. It should be a little bit, more pure, like a cleaner profile. But I don't know. Hey Kurt, any comments from you on the Glen Grant style or on this one specifically you want to share?
Kind of sit with Sean. Think if I had a few guesses, I would get there. 'Cause I don't think it's too far off. But I think the cheat on this one is that it reminds me more of modern Glen Grant than it does of what I would expect Glen Grant. This doesn't seem very old school. It seems kind of modern.
Mhm.
Really cool whiskey. I'm just not sure I would think 30-year-old Grant.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jeff, enjoy your dinner. We'll see you by the speed round, maybe. Well, shall we keep this show rolling? Move on to the Tomatin and see what that one looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
down to try Old Tomatin.
I
Yeah.
know, right?
All right.
Yeah. There's some nice funkiness in here, creaminess as well. A little cheesy.
All right. Popping her up. So 30-year-old from a single refill hogshead from 1994, bottled at 51.6%. Um, the producer description, please be warned that this whiskey is extremely fruity, juicy, and exquisite. As such, please refrain from wearing the all-new, all-automatic Opinion Digitizer 3000 while tasting it. The intensity of the opinions it will induce could potentially be sufficient to crash the internet and destabilize Whiskyland. You'll just have to sit quietly and drink this whiskey by yourself or in the physical company of other people, like it was done in ye olden times.
I
So
love the label on that one.
yeah, it is a fun label. Like put that back up for a second. Like that is obviously the interface for the opinion digitizer. Um, yeah.
That's what these tastings are.
Digitized opinions,
Mhm.
pixelated. So
This screams the most ripe green-skinned apple I've ever sank my teeth into.
Like, yeah, passion fruit, guava, absolutely.
it's, I would say a not top end, but like just below top end hotel, like fruit buffet, like breakfast buffet of mixed fruit. It's not the Holiday Inn like melons, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Wow, it's really cool.
But I mean, that's for me. This is like, the guava note's a good one, but really it's a lot of pine, like a lot of melon. Like I'm getting like a lot of honeydew, a lot of cantaloupe.
Oh, yeah. It's just like syrupy sourness. It's fabulous. The palate is just bonkers.
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's so crazy fruit. That's just a bomb.
So
Wow.
last week I was in another city for a tasting, and we poured the 1988 G&M Tomatin that we've still got on the shelf at the shop, and it was a lot like this. It was
Mm.
lush, creamy, decadent, tropical. I mean, to me, it's remarkable how similar those two whiskeys were. Given that this is, I think, even younger. That other one was, I think it was in 1988. Um, Bottling had a few more years on it than this, but I mean, remarkable how similar those two were.
I
Yeah,
remember
like, sorry, Sean, go ahead.
I remember like back in the day we had like those old like the slightly uglier but more homely labels like 30 and 40-year-old Tomatin, and they always ended up being tropical as well. They also really I distinctly remember them taking on that slightly anemic quality like very gracefully and just turning it
Mhm.
into like a juicy texture aspect to it. And
Mhm.
Mhm.
this kind of follows suit with that.
Mm.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, those old tomatins. I mean, God bless them. They were also shockingly reasonably priced, and
Mhm.
then frequently they'd do a deal with us to help them move some of the inventory. Um, I mean, the new ones are still good. Like I think those new ones are still great, but the prices on them now, I mean, they're $1,500 for the 13-year-old. It's just hard to kind of justify.
Yeah, that
It,
this is fantastic. This
it
isn't gonna make it to the next round, I don't think.
totally. It's like
No.
I just opened up like a bag of Sour Patch Kids and just started like handfuls in my mouth.
Well, and the finish is like all those like fruits, like your apple skins from your green apple that you mentioned. Like if you peeled it and just started eating it, like over time you get that sour, like acidity, that raw tongue feeling just after sipping this one.
Yeah, it's also got like more weight than the last two whiskeys had, which is probably partly due to the
Mm.
strength. I mean, we've pushed way up above 50% on this.
Yeah.
But the mouth feel on it is just there's more like texture and body to this than there was on the last one.
Yeah. This is this is showing very differently, like from the very first one. Something you said in the introduction about bottlings, where big distilleries that produce spirits intended for blending, they get
Mhm.
put in the casks with intentions of being used, but in some cases they're not, and then they end up, 25, 30 plus years old. Um, Now, when they're purchased, I'm just curious, are they still sitting in those casks? Because like the Imperial to me, it's
Mhm.
like very oxidized. Was that barrel potentially quite done when it was entered into? Or is this just how it happened over 26
Well,
years?
I think the reality is like, and these first three whiskeys, I think they're all versions of the same thing, is almost certainly all of these are refill casks. Like they've all
Mhm.
been used once before. Almost certainly, whether they were sherry or bourbon to begin with, they're all, you know, American oak. So you've got those two characteristics of the same. This is spirit that would have been laid down thinking it would go into a blend. And because of that, they weren't really worried about it tasting good at 10 years of age. Like maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. But it would kind of just, it would get put into a melange in the blend and it wouldn't matter. I think at some point these were traded off. The question is when and who had them for how long. Like, I mean, again, I look at, for example, Signatory, which is where Angus, he does all his bottling there. I'm sure he gets a good portion of his casks from them as well. But like, when's the last time you saw Signatory bottle a 30-year-old Tomatin? Like, it's been a long time. So the question is, we don't know. How long has he had these? Like, or how long has Decadent Drinks owned them? Maybe these are things they bought 5-6 years ago. We don't know. Or they're things that just come up. I don't know. But I think the reality is none of these are things that were, when they were put into cask, no one ever thought they'd be drank as a single malt. I think it's fair to say with all three of these whiskeys, and probably with the next one, which is maybe a good segue into the Tormore. Because really until Elixir bought Tormore, what was it now, 4 years ago, something like that? 3-4 years ago, Chivas, who owned them before, kind of did some half-hearted bottlings, but like nothing really interesting. Tormore has been a workhorse of the whiskey industry since it opened in the 60s. Was not made to produce whiskey for single malts. It was made to produce whiskey for blends. And I think almost anything, even the stuff that we see Elixir bottle in the years ahead, all of that is stuff that was destined to be blended whiskey. It was none of it was destined to be single malt, but it doesn't mean that it still can't be great, especially if left long enough. And I think that's the story of, for sure, these first three whiskeys, and probably the next one, is with enough time, even something that, might not have been great young has the potential to become really expressive and really interesting, especially for the kind of folk like us that love these delicate, tropical, older whiskeys.
Yeah.
Slight offside, but has Angus ever mentioned, like, is the Whiskyland label specifically just going to be for a single malt or whatnot, or because I guess we've only had so many chapters.
I think it is going to only be single malts. I mean, there might be some teaspooned whiskeys in there, like Balvenie, but I think the intention is that it's for single malts. But like Whiskey Sponge, it's going to be a limited run. Like once they hit 100, that's the end of it, and presumably he'll come up with some other marketing strategy. I mean, that's probably 4 years away, maybe 5. Where's the whiskey industry going to be in 4 or 5 years? Who knows? Next one, Tormore. This is a distillery that I know at least 2, maybe 3 of us have a soft spot for. 33-year-old Tormore, 1992 vintage, refill ex-bourbon barrel, 53.7%. Put her up on screen here, and as per the bingo card, I will squint at the screen so that I can read the text for you here. Meet Jimmy Barleycorn, one of the many characters that inhabit Whiskyland. He only shows his physog when whiskies of great age with extraordinarily raw raw ingredients, characteristic emerge. Tormore, 30 years of age, natural cask strength, pure, raw, vivid, old malt whiskey that reeks of raw malted barley, yeast, and thyme. Powerful, bright, and waxy old dram. So, what's the verdict? How is the Tormore? I found it was kind of shy when I first kind of put my nose in the glass.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that this necessarily like throws fruit into your palate or into your nose, but definitely when you say like raw grain and yeast, like it does actually come across a little more bready to me, but not like sourdough bread, just like a straight clean yeasty bread with a notable density to it. Like you can tell that
Perhaps
it's like
an Irish soda bread.
I'm not sure I'm familiar with what that is like.
Oof. Irish soda bread is like great. It's dense. Usually there's a little bit of sugar on the top of it, so you get a little bit of sweetness. Sometimes there might be some raisins or some other dried fruits in it. And like ideally keep it in the freezer because it's one of those breads. It's not light and fluffy, it's dense. But yeah, carve it up, put it in the toaster, put some hot butter on it. Man, good times.
Kurt mentioned a little bit of like yogurt covered raisins. Yeah, I definitely get some of that slightly yogurt on fruit in there.
Mm.
Yeah, it's got like a little
Yes.
bit of a tart, almost wild fermenty kind of note to it.
Yeah, I was getting like right off the bat, my very first notes when I was pouring it out was like a combination of like lemon and dill. Over time, it became a little bit more white glue and like dollar store candles. The unwashed skins of your like store-bought apples, where it's kind of got that like waxy outside to it, and then becomes very like yeasty, um, kind of citrusy. I dig the cranberries notes.
Mm.
Just dig biting into a sour cranberry.
The watermelon goss is an interesting one. It's not one I can relate to because I think as well, at least the three of you know, I would never drink such a beer.
Oh yeah, the
I'd never
gotcha, yeah.
stoop so low as to drink such a beer. Um, but yeah, it's cheesy, funky, kind of oxidized. There's this like slightly tart fruit tone to it, so maybe that's the
Mhm.
gossa. Is it goss or gossa? Where are we gonna?
Go
Where are we?
goza,
Goza. Okay, like gozer,
kind of, yeah.
kind of like that.
Yeah. It's so like I've said this in other Tormores, like, or at least from our SMOS and some prior, I always get like a slight volatility to it that comes across like, secondary, tertiary alcohols, like something a little hot on it. And this still comes across a little bit like that for me. There's just something to it that's just kind of interesting and prickly.
Mhm.
It's very nutty.
Yeah.
But Sean, here is one possibility because I don't know when this would have happened, but like our Tormore, it has like quite a like prominent like peanutty nuttiness, like sort of reminiscent of like Jim Beam bourbon, that kind of peanutty note. Um, Tormore for a period, presumably not 33 years ago, but for a period in the last 15 years or so, has been filling casks at still strength. And, filling them at that much higher ABV could potentially explain some of that you're getting almost more of a like solvent effect with the spirit in the wood as opposed to a maturation effect. But I don't really know for sure. But I mean, the ABV on this is still pretty impressive for its age, like 33 years and it's 53.7. So I mean, likelihood this was probably filled 63 and a half. I mean, if I were a betting man.
You think 60 at 33, really?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of whiskeys that are still in
Yeah,
that ABV range.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Possible it
true.
could have been filled higher. Um, but it's I think for me what I like about it, it's sort of funky and wild. Like it reminds me of like homemade granola, like made when you're out camping in the woods. Like honey, granola, maybe some craisins or raisins mixed in there.
Mhm.
Palate's lush, waxy, still a little bit funky, but that's not the most elegant of the four whiskeys we've had so far, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Um, I might, I'd probably put that a notch above the Imperial for me, like just because it's kind of fun. It's got a bit
Yeah.
more profile to it.
I think I put them about equal for myself.
Yeah. Well, let's see. We'll see what time does. Time and oxidation. Uh, anything else to say about the Tormore before we move on to the Springbank? No? All right. On to the Springbank. So these are all gone. We had two different Springbanks. What is interesting is a lot of these Springbanks that we've seen were just long-term maturation single cast. This is a finish, 4 years finished in first fill sherry, which is a little surprising. I'm hoping we've got the right.
This one is?
Right.
I think this might be the wrong one.
44.
I thought this one was refill.
Uh,
It's not the one with the woman on the bottle, I think.
yeah, well here put you what I've got on screen here, Sean, and then we'll have to see if so this is the bottle shot we have in the description. Go on to,
Oh yeah, no, that's the right one. Yeah.
but it is funny
Huh.
because it seems
4 years in first fill. I wonder if maybe these two were mixed up.
I mean
Well,
possible.
in the description says, oh, right, it is 30 stuff. Weird. Yeah.
I'm just doing a quick
It's
look.
also sold out, so you can't buy it, isn't it?
It's a moot point, yeah. Sean,
Okay.
I'm looking at the image on the site. Um, uh, let's see
Yeah,
here.
maybe it is. Maybe that is correct. Even the other one says refill sherry hogshead.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this one, the other one was a refill sherry hogshead.
Huh.
I mean, it's possible we have the wrong one linked on here. There was two different Springbank 30s. I mean, Harmony, do you recall when we poured the tasting? Like, because the image in
No,
that presumably was correct.
don't remember that image, to be
It's
honest.
I think that's
it
so Kelvin says that's the correct picture. I mean, the challenge with this is that you get two different Springbank 30 years. This was supposed to be the cheaper of the two, whichever one that one was. Um,
I'm just surprised that it's his first fill for 4 years. Just seems really intense for something so pale.
well, once more, I'm going to dig in here.
It
Um,
also doesn't come across that very much on the nose. Although there is maybe a little bit of like a Fino sherry kind of note
I'm
on
gonna
the
say, could
nose.
it be like a white port, a white sherry?
so
Yeah, it could be like Manzanilla.
Yeah.
uh, chapter 15, whiskey.
That would actually be really cool if it was like, because I swear that when people are getting Fino and Manzanilla casks, they're charring them so they get more color out of it. Because like those are very, very pale sherries. But I wonder if maybe this one is like the same thing, but he didn't do that. I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe.
All right. I'm having trouble figuring out, but I think this, Sean, I think this is the correct descriptor. Because I looked on Decadent Drams and the one they have there is for that chapter 7, which is the only other one I think it could have been, is quite a bit darker.
Fair.
I mean, I'll just put the bottle shot on screen here for a moment. Like, I don't think there's any way that
Yeah,
it can
Kevin
be.
has a second one there, and that one's clearly sherried. Yeah.
Yeah, so here, let me put this up. Like if this was the other one, like this is not that one.
Yeah.
So I think we've got the right one. This is the 94. According to the description, uh, finished in sherry casks. Seems a bit odd, but I mean, I guess we've seen, we've seen it before. I mean, here, let me just see if I can pull up one last thing. I remember the last thing is when all these came in, it was a little bit we were a little bit rushed trying to get it all pulled together. Okay, I can't find it on their site right now, but
That's fair.
we're just gonna have to go
Either,
with it. That is the correct description, and yes, it
yeah,
is.
I would just assume.
Yeah.
Remember so when we first started, I noted that it didn't really scream Springbank to me on the nose. After sitting for a bit, much, much, much more. It's actually, yeah.
Yeah.
But
It is Springbanky. It had a weird kind of musty funk, like right off the bat, which could have been that sherry finish.
and there's still a little bit of that there for sure. It intermingles with that typical funk as well.
Campbeltown funk. Underneath it, it seems like it's got that lush, tropical, slightly smoky profile that you'd expect to get for 30-year-old Springbank.
Yeah, those like decayed phenols that definitely kind of stick around as well.
I mean, this is not as pristine as that the 2025 Springbank 30-year-old. Like that was just like so clean in its profile, like so fruity. Um, this has got a little bit of like an almost industrial kind of, I don't know, industrial side to it.
I imagine it's like that fragile barrel, real like it the other whatever was made with the original 30 was made out of. It was, I don't know. There's more wine on it. Obviously, there was more like rich wood tones. There's more color. It probably did a fair amount to like keep that whiskey tighten it together. Whereas this thing feels like it's barely holding itself together, but not falling apart, of course.
Yeah, it's it's got a lovely palate. I mean, it's old school, like old school Springbank, creamy, nice minerality, nice malty tones to it. But I mean, it is hard to believe that this was finished in sherry. I mean, like maybe that light mustiness or something there, but it just does not come across. I mean, to me, is sherry. Like 4 years of sherry finishing, you would think that there'd be kind of more of that sort of sherry profile, like smothered on top of it, like layered on top of it.
Yeah, it's not going to sound good because every time I have brought this up in the past, it has not been a good point. But in this it kind of is. You've heard me like dip with like sour cream in a French onion soup packet. It's kind of got a bit of that on the palate for me,
Mhm.
other than all the fruit, of course. But it actually works very, very well with it.
So when you said dip at first, I thought you like start with chewing tobacco. You got the sour cream and onion dip, and I'm like, okay, whoa, what, John, where are you going with this? Tobacco and sour cream and onion dip? No.
Yeah, uh, that's too much. This reminds me of that week in shop class where you put away wood and you work on like your plastic creation and you're trying to like polish those white cut edges off and make it look all smooth. I don't know, that it just reminds me of shop class a little bit when you're cutting and polishing plastic.
Like toxic exposure, but on a small scale and sanctified by the education system.
100%. Yeah. You
Yeah.
definitely get like, for me, a lot of bourbon like notes, not a lot of sherry for sure.
Well, I'm going to throw this one out there again. How many of you would have pegged this as Springbank blind?
Mhm.
Curtis
I
says you would.
like I said, like when I first poured it, no way in hell. Now I
Mm.
give it like a 30-70 chance kind of thing.
Right. Four guesses, 33 guesses.
Yeah.
It's a little bit farty the more I dig
Yeah.
into it on the nose.
The nose is absolutely still farty. I just feel like there's, even at that point, there's only so many malt profiles that come across quite like this. And I think
Mhm.
that's what would kind of tip me towards it.
Mhm.
Mm. Kurt's in love with this. Yeah. This is his jam.
I like it. It's good. Um, Frankly, it's better than good. But I mean, we've had so many good Springbanks from decadent drinks from Springbank. Like the last few Springbank 30s we put into tastings have been bonkers. And like the last one especially was phenomenal. Um, but yeah, it's good. I don't know. If I'm being totally honest, I am not sure that I would pick that out Springbank blind. It would probably be if I had a couple of guesses, I'd probably get it. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't scream Springbank to me.
There's an austerity there that I love. And there's kind of notes on the palate, especially that remind me of like you've left an empty glass of some agave drink overnight.
Yeah.
It's kind of dry. It's just left a little bit of earthy, organic kind of stuff behind, maybe a hint of smoke there too. There's a lot of linseed oil notes. There's a lot of like slightly hints at chemically stuff going on, almost like a little bit something to just a really neat style that I think
Hmm.
we don't ever really get to see. It's so obscure and so out there. I don't know. I hunt for whiskey.
I just asked uh whatever Google AI, when did Mark Wright leave Springbank? Because I mean, when we started the tasting tonight, one of the things I talked about was like how um he left and he was kicked out of the business by his uncle because he basically gave away like all these glorious old Springbanks for almost nothing. And you know, Kurt, I know you remember these vicariously or like in through through benefactors that we knew, like those old 21-year-old Springbanks that actually had liquid that was in some cases 30 years of age that were just insane. And again, like you look back, like the only reason that these things are out there in the wild is because Headley's nephew sold them off. You know, Frank McCarty came in there, came back to Springbank from Bushmills and like tightened all this shit down. Like, you know, and a lot of that stuff stopped after that. So like it's why you don't see IBs of Springbank that are like under 30 years of age anymore because they don't sell them. They haven't been selling casks for years. I mean, I think employees get to buy casks, but there's still rules about what they can do with them. Like, I don't think they can just sell them to anybody. So,
Andrew, that Springbank 21, I was actually drinking that last night with Joey and Evan here at my place.
oh yeah,
Any of you that get a chance, chase down one of those beige looking bottles, all thin bottled in 2005.
the
So
tall round in the flimsy ass cardboard box.
yeah, I've got one bottle left. I'm sure some of you will get to drink some.
Yeah, I think I managed to acquire one from someone recently, um, in a trade, which it's not something I do a lot of, but that was one of those ones where it was like, yeah, I'd kind of like to get one of those. Well, a lovely Springbank. I mean, this is kind of the shame in this, and that for some people, like this is like trying 30-year-old Springbank is incredible because they never get to do it. But I kind of feel like I've been spoiled. Like some of the Springbanks I've had a chance to try in the last few years, and as good as this is, it's just not among the best of those that I've had in the last few years. All right, Ben Nevis. I think it's fair to say that most of us on this chat have had a fondness for Ben Nevis over the years, um, especially Ben Nevis from 1996. But as we've learned, not all Ben Nevis from 1996 is created equally. Um, some of it is interesting or dodgy or flawed, depending on your perspective. So this is a second bottling of a 1996 Whiskey Sponge Ben Nevis 58B. It's from a second fill sherry, but we had the sister cast to this whiskey. This one's 55%. I struggled with the sister cask to this whiskey. Um, I am interested to see how I make out with this, but this has that Ben Nevis funk, but like dialed up, you know.
I think most people struggled with that first cask, although I will admit it grew on me after a little bit.
Oh, it did. It needed a long time of like oxidation, but it got better. I know that we found it like a heel in the store and we tried it. It was really quite good.
Hmm.
But it was
Yeah.
is about one of the most naked things that you could get at that price or at that age.
Mm-hmm.
So Ben Nevis, I mean, distillery that had long fermentations, in some cases, very long fermentations, partly because of the period when this was being made. This is going back to a period when the whiskey industry was limping along. 96, I don't know if it was the year that Nika's parent company bought it, or if it was the like a couple years later. But this is at that point in time when they started shipping 70% of the production from Ben Nevis to Japan to be matured as components for Japanese whiskey, including those incredible pure malts that we used to get, like the white, black, and gold label I'm sure there was a good amount of Ben Nevis in those, as well as in the from the barrel bottlings. But yeah, Kurt says hints of Ben Rennis. I mean, this one has that borderline unpleasant farminess that I don't love. Like I'm sure we're not reading between the lines here that Kurt suggesting hints of Ben Rennis is probably fair to say that is not a compliment.
I've had some nice
Kurt, is
ones
that
from
accurate?
him,
Do you
but
want
he
to chime in
doesn't.
on that?
Yeah, it's just like his least favorite distillery.
It's definitely one of my least favorite, but in fairness, there was a couple of decent Ben Rennis that hadn't had released. You guys probably remember these
Mhm.
in the black label, small batch. They
Mhm.
have a decent amount of age on them, high teens, 20s. Some of those were actually okay, and this one is actually kind of okay.
Honestly,
I
the
know that
last
sounds like a
several
damn faint praise, right? But it's
Damning with
just
faint
okay.
praise, Kurt.
the
That's what
last
we
several
came back for.
signatories were good.
I think there was a feeling that I was not doing enough damning with faint praise. We
Yeah,
needed Kurt to step in and do some too. Um,
I,
Kurt, one of the things you might not have been uh, privy to, but one of the things we've been talking about, and James Bourne and I are going to make this happen next year, is we're going to have a head-to-head of what we feel are Scotland's worst distilleries, and Ben Rennis is one of my two picks. Um, the the other one is Uthrusk, but yeah. I mean, I've had good Ben Rennis.
That's a.
To be
You're gonna
fair,
do a
I don't think
tasting
I've
then?
ever had. What's that?
You're gonna do an actual like we're gonna do a tasting like that?
Yeah, but I think the idea is that we each pick two distilleries, and we each pick what we feel is a bad example of that, and then their challenge is to pick a good one.
That's
So it's
cool.
kind of a challenge.
What
So
a rad tasting.
yeah, that that one
Participate in
that
ours
one
where half of the whiskeys are considered the worst.
that one may have there might be some controversy generated from that one. Um, but I mean, I think for me, what's incredible about this is like how not incredible the spirit is, because those 96s that we had from Ben Nevis were just superb. Like we've had so many great 1996 Ben Nevis bottlings, um, but they're not all great. And it's not just the whiskey sponge. We've had some. There was that was it first editions or old malt cask? There was one of those that was a 96 Ben Nevis, and it was dreadful and like sherried and just not great.
We had a bunch of the old malt cask like year over year, and most of them were good, but some were like iffy.
Yeah.
I guess speaking with the Ben Nevis too, because we had that one truly spectacular elixir as well, single malts of Scotland that was so deeply richly sherried. I hadn't tasted it for so long, and I got a chance to try it a couple months back, and it convinced me to open like one of the bottles that I had because it was just oof, too good.
I just noticed Doug showed up and is throwing shade. So welcome, Doug. Try to be on time next time. Um, yeah, that was I mean, I think, and it's not just Sherry Sean. Like there was some other 96s that were just kind of, they were more spirity and tropical. Um, I mean, I think it's probably one of those distilleries where there's times where there's just a lack of consistency. And it makes sense. I mean, the distillery basically was on the verge of going broke when it got bought out and then started producing primarily for Japan. Um, I mean, I don't hate this. I just really don't love it.
Honestly,
Um,
the palate's quite pleasant compared to the nose. The nose is like actually pretty difficult to get through, but
well, I
the
remember the
palate is way
last one, the
fruitier.
nose on the last one was worse. It was like there was like a baby vomit kind of addition to it on top of this.
Yeah.
Harmony, what did you write down? What did you write down?
I wrote dairy vomit.
Oh,
And I wrote like yeasty bread dough rising, oxo, dairy, barf dairy, and wetwood.
mm, yeah.
So
I
good.
mean,
This one I feel like I could probably blind
Yeah.
yeah.
fairly easily.
So like let's just quickly talk about that profile. I mean, uh, is there a connection between that sort of baby vomit note and this sort of that strange funk? Like, you know, probably this is like a very long fermentation. Maybe it went too long. And like, could the fermentation have gotten infected? Like, I mean, that's not something we talked about before, but is that a thing? I mean, where's the threshold between like those tropical tones going lactic and then maybe it going over the edge?
That's a good question because I think like even in the brewing, like for beer brewing, I mean, you always risk the chance of things happening like that, and especially with Scotland, for all intents and purposes, they're practically open fermenters, with the exception of just like a loose wood covering. So yeah, that I've never really thought about that. What would they
It's,
do? Would they just distill it off anyways? Like I guess why not, right?
well, they just sell it to someone else and not use it for their own stuff, right?
Huh.
Andrew, you've probably heard stories like this at the distilleries where they talk about buying parcels of casks. And I remember Alan Logan at Body in particular being kind of peeved about a bunch of Oloroso and PX they bought that arrived and it was all funky and moldy and like a whole shipment.
No.
This almost smells more like it's barrel funk to me than something that's wrong still. Because I can still see some good Ben Nevis, but it's much like Ben Rennis where it always just
Yeah.
smells like bung cloth and like burlap to me.
Well, that's a fair point because this is a refill sherry butt. So,
Mm,
I mean, it's a problem that you don't hear about happening with bourbon casks for obvious reasons.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, could it have just been spoiled? Maybe they didn't bother to rinse it. But then here's the weird one in this. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was a refill sherry butt, so it would have had whiskey in it before, which you'd think would like kill whatever was in there that was causing the problem in the first place. Um, anyway, it's a dirty Ben Nevis. Um, I don't hate it to damn it with faint praise. The Paladin Sean, I agree with you, is better, but it's just when you think about the great Ben Nevis we've had, great Ben Nevi rather, um, this is not one of them to me.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. Nice,
I
nice little
yeah.
pun there, Doug. Um, sorry, Sean, you're gonna say something?
I was just gonna say, like, I'm semi convinced that it's the sherry that kind of added some of those undesirable notes on there because it looked like because he labeled them A and B for this lot. I wonder if he wanted to do a bit of a contrast, and I wonder if he put that in that the sherry in order to try and like separate the two out a little bit, and it just didn't work out that well. But he bottled them up anyways.
Well, it sounds like there should be a Ben Nevi tasting where we can answer that question once and for all. Doug saying maybe bad yeast. I mean, yeast is a living thing; it can go bad. But that was my point. Like, it can also get infected. So you look at the old breweries. I remember when I went to visit Fuller's Brewery, and this is going back like 2005 or six in London, and they had and they had two storage locations, I think, for their yeast that were like safety sites just in case their main supply got infected. And it was like this is something that they're really, because it's a living thing, it's a concern. And Sean, going back to the cask, like again, because it's a refill cask, it's hard to see how the sherry could be causing this. Like it has to be something that happened at fermentation. um, I mean, distillation's less likely, although, maybe, I don't know, maybe it didn't get as much copper contact for whatever reason, could be part of it too. But I think that funkiness, maybe it's either to Doug's point, bad yeast, or just it fermented for too long. So, um, which is a thing. I mean, we talk about how long fermentations are great, but like the longer it's in there, the more there is risk something could go bad. And I think you look at those Bricklady, what do you call them? The Lockendals, have those really lactic tones, which I think is because, if my memory is correct, because they went into like really long fermentations. Some of them are cool. Some of them are like undrinkable. Like they're just not pleasant. So yeah. Shall we move on to Orkney? We've been kind of stuck in the stuck on the Ben Nevis for a bit here. A lot of talk about what I think is not my favorite whiskey in the lineup. Good conversation though. Last one, Old Orkney. This is sold out. Sadly, 21-year-old. Not a lot of this came in. There's a bit of an homage here to an old brand of whiskey from the Orkneys. 2003 refill hogshead, married with a 1999 first fill ex-bodega sherry butt, 52.9%. It's the third official bottling of Old Orkney. And I think that's because they recently bought the rights to it. So some of the earlier ones they didn't actually own the rights to Old Orkney, but they've actually managed to purchase them. So let me pop that up on screen here and we can dig in. So there we go. They married together equal parts Orkney malts from two different casks. The whiskeys combined and married in a second fill sherry butt for at least 6 months before being bottled at natural cask strength. The result is a very big, robust, well-sherried Orkney malt. What do we think about the Old Orkney 21?
The initial nose reminded me of like your cookies that you make, those brown buttered chocolate cookies.
Chocolate chip oatmeal cookies. Yeah, brown butter, key. A little bit
Like
of
that.
kosher
That's
salt put in there too. That little kosher.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, in
I
Harmony,
think
it's
right.
because it's funny you mention that because that browning of the butter, you can almost get a little smokiness from it too, because you start to burn the butter a little bit.
Yes,
Yeah,
chef.
good note. I like
I,
that. I wish I had put together a batch today, but I have not. So
tomorrow's Wednesday. I'm in, and perfect day for it. Oh wait, no, you're in at like
well, you
like
gotta.
6 a.m. or 7 a.m. Never mind.
We're not gonna make it
I'm
till
in pretty
noon.
early. Also, the batch, the dough has to rest overnight. Like you can't just make the
Maybe
cookies from it right away. You got to let the dough rest.
you
Everybody
gotta
knows
put some
that.
scotch in it too.
I find this a fairly typical profile for for Highland Park. I think at least on the nose, it really for like it's always that like that sour porridge, slightly acrid smoke note on it, but obviously
Mhm.
much more mature right now.
What's interesting to me is that this reminds me more of like some of those Berry Brothers Orkneys that we've had rather than the actual Highland Park distillery bottlings. And
Can see
part of
that.
that is because like I'm not getting, despite the fact that one of these was in an ex bodega sherry cask, I'm not getting that gooey kind of sherry on the nose. It's a much cleaner profile than that.
Mhm.
And I mean that in a good way. Like it's just it doesn't have that like globby, dumpy Highland Park sherry profile.
Mhm.
Oh, and there's a lot of peat on this too. I mean, like
Mhm.
this is again, I think this reminds me more of some of those like Orkney bottlings that we would get from Berry Brothers than it does the actual Highland Park distillery bottlings.
Mm. This is, I really enjoy it. I can't
Mhm.
think of a lot of things to say outside of like a smoked cookie, but
Yeah.
it's very
Yep.
enjoyable.
Yeah. Honeyed oatmeal,
Hmm.
chocolate, like quite a bit of smoke.
Hmm.
Lot of citrus fruit, so like a lot of orange for me.
The
Yeah.
nose still pokes out as like a fresh package of Oreo cookies for me.
Mm.
Mhm.
The palate's more like the Fortnum and Mason chocolate covered ginger biscuits.
Oh yeah, yeah, ginger biscuits for sure.
But like with like real chunks of ginger, like not just
No,
not just the spice, but actual like stem ginger.
man, Paladon's really nice.
Mhm.
It's this is only 21, right? Yeah. Hmm. There's a lot of like pencil lead and minerality notes on there.
Yeah, there is a lot of minerality. Hmm.
It reminds me of some like I don't know, some wine casks I remember in the past, like maybe like STR almost. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I mean it's good. I like it better than I think I like most Highland Parks.
Cool.
I think
Yeah.
that's an easy thing to say.
It is, to be fair, a fairly low bar. All right. Let's speed round this because I think we've taken a while. Well, we're at 8:20. Time has flown by. All right. Going back to the Imperial. Quick palate cleansing sip of beer.
Hmm. Way more light white fruit on here, like throwing it way more than it did originally. More expressive. Now that
Oh,
the ABV is kind
salsa.
of like tamped down a little bit,
It's like the essence of tropical fruit now, mixed with again like some like candied ginger.
like a bag of lifesavers.
It's like eating all those tropical fruits, but you just washed your hands with like that white bar hotel soap. So you get
Mm.
the sense of the floral soap while you're eating like tropical candy.
Smells like
It's
white chocolate and juicy
Mm-hmm.
pineapple.
it's it's great. It's still not as good as any of the single malts of Scotland ones, though. I'm adamant about that. I think all four of those were better than this. The Glen Grant though has really kicked it up on the nose.
Mm.
That's opened up really nicely.
That's come across much more baked goods for me on the nose, but
Hmm.
still a lot of fruit as well.
Tons of fruit.
Maybe more passion fruit on the nose.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, it's still super naked, but bright fruits, nice little bit of spice in there. Nice. It's a light mouthfeel. I think that maltiness that we got before has really toned down a little bit. And the shea butter note is a good one. Like it's definitely got like a cocoa butter kind of clean oiliness to it. So that's a good note, Kurt. I like that. Any other comments on the Glen Grant?
It's still a fantastic bottle, in my opinion.
All right. What about the Tomatin? The Tomatin was kind of the surprise. I think was probably one of the surprise hits of the first round. Like
Mhm.
punched way above its weight.
That coconut note Sean mentioned is really showing through now.
I feel like I feel like there's a bit of a rich. It's not as ripe red berry, but there's an essence of fruit punch to it that's kind of interesting. Maybe like a white fruit punch.
Mm.
Maybe a McCain's Minute Maid fruit punch juice box.
Yeah, maybe.
Remember those? Those were good times.
Mhm.
I think the
Yeah.
palette on this is still killer. I mean, I don't know, in some ways the Tomatin 30 is like the least sexy whiskey in the entire lineup. And I think especially if you don't know Tomatin or if you've not had the chance to have a lot of old Tomatins, but I think it's showing really well. And I think that's a strong contender for me for the best whiskey in the lineup.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Catch the taste. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Was that the Minute Maid? Was that a Minute Maid slogan or was that for something else?
Who's Roberto Alomar?
Wasn't it like McCain Punch or
Yeah.
something? It was the
Oh.
worst commercial ever. He was the worst.
Well, because wasn't he a baseball player for like the Blue Jays or something? Yeah. But like those Minute Maid fruit like 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 fruit punch juice boxes. Like
Yeah, they threw him one and he caught it and he held it up and like, did this big fake smile and said, catch the
Yeah.
tape.
just imagine how many kids had to get diabetes just to pay for that commercial.
Worth it. Look at the
Totally.
memories we have now.
Sorry, that was like apologies to anybody with diabetes. It was not to make light of.
Dude, like that. Okay, if we're moving on to Tormore, like the peanutty note is like absolutely in spades, like through straight up like peanuts, beer nuts, like through and through.
Hmm.
I'm starting to think peanut is like is like a Tormore signature note. Like
Hmm.
Yeah, I wonder.
because like our cask of Tormore is like got big time peanut on it. Um, the store in Airdrie that shall not be named, whose Gord MacPhail cask of Tormore we're selling on sale, I might add, that has a peanutty note to it too. Like I poured it at an event recently as well.
Oh, cool. Oh, I wanted to try that one.
It's good. I mean, I don't think it's yeah,
Not $200 good, but
it's not two hundred
$130
dollars
good.
good, but it is $130 good while supplies last. So
Nice. Yeah, it's a good one.
um yeah, I like that Tormore. It's a little tight on the palate, but really firm spice. But interesting. I think it's going to be hard. That one's going to have a hard time squeezing into my top three, but I think it shows really well. Uh,
Mm.
uh, all right, the mysterious first fill sherry finished in for 4 years, Springbank 30 year that does not seem like it was ever, well, certainly not in fresh sherry for four years.
It
Mysterious.
smells good.
It's still holding on to that like onion dip note on there.
And by dip, just to be clear, because we are in Alberta here, you're not talking chewing tobacco as I had originally thought.
You don't take onions and like, but oh, I guess it must be a native Alberta thing.
That was not a hockey thing. To put onions in your lip. No.
The savory notes just adds like a new dimension to an already amazing malt profile though, so I like it.
Yeah.
I'm hurt.
There's almost a slight acetic note on the nose now for me. Like just slightly leaning into a vinegar almost.
Kurt, in a way, you're re-entering your Flintstone Vitamins years. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw Flintstone Vitamins. But I'll get a chance, presumably, to see them again in the next handful of years here. Um, it's interesting because it's it's a great whiskey. I love the palate on it. But again, it's not great compared to some of those Springbanks we've had lately. The comment in there, like, nice to see that it wasn't finished in like kind of a wet, goopy sherry finish. But I mean, I wonder why they did it at all. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they acquired it from somebody who'd finished it. But like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like they achieved the aim of 4 years in sherry. Like, unless I'm completely missing something here.
Yeah, it's not doing much for me personally. It's fine.
I mean, it might still crack my top three, but not on a value
Mm.
perspective.
I mean, you can't find value with Springbank over the age of 25 nowadays anyways.
No, that's true. All right.
All right.
On to the whiskey that people are going to love or hate. Oh man. This
Peppery.
is, what's that, Harmony?
It's very peppery.
I was going to say it's gone really beefy. Like,
It is. Well, I said OXO.
yeah, like beef
Yeah.
bouillon.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what that other sister bottling
Yeah.
was like. It was quite beefy.
Yeah, again, I don't hate it. I really don't.
Yeah. Old Orkney.
Yeah.
What would
Yeah, it's
Chris
just this.
Parker say? Like, I think he'd say that was his seventh favorite whiskey in the tasting.
Right.
Isn't that
Yeah,
isn't that what he would chime in with? Yeah.
he would. Yeah, probably.
It's probably my seventh favorite whiskey in the lineup tonight.
Mhm.
Old Orkney 21. I mean, this is a bit of a departure. All those other Old Orkneys we've seen have been like more naked, more on that ex-bourbon side or refill sherry. Um,
This is more old cigar smoke again, like or like you smoked in a room, the next day you come back in and it's still lingering.
yeah. It seems to well, and I think that smoke note, like if we go back to that first pass, there was more smoke there, which makes me think like this is possibly 100% Orkney malt. Like Highland Park famously only does a portion of their um, production on their traditional floor maltings, but that's where all the peat happens. So and I honestly can't remember. I used to know this fact, whether they blended the barleys together before milling and then, eventually distillation, or if they distilled them separately and then brought the spirits back together. But I mean, at times we've seen these more heavily peated Highland Parks than is typical, which presumably means it's entirely floor maltings or largely floor maltings in those cases. And what is interesting about this is that this does come across as much more heavily peated than your standard Highland Park at this age.
I don't know that much about Highland Park. I wasn't really aware that they did like some or a little bit or anything
Yeah,
like that.
so
Yeah.
because they harvest their peat on the island and they do about 18 to 20%, I believe, of their own floor maltings. And my understanding was that all the barley that they had brought in from the mainland was unpeated, and the only peated malt they used was the peated malt from their floor maltings. Now that might have changed at some point in time as well. Like it's been about 8 to 10 years since I was last there, but for some reason I had this idea that they either blended the malts, the peated and unpeated malt, or they blended the spirits before filling so that they would have a consistent peating level. But then you'll remember like they had some of those like ridiculous Viking themes um, where some of them were much more heavily peated than others. And those were essentially, um, you know, all Orkney floor malted um, um, production.
Oh, is that like okay? Yeah. So the last Old Orkney we opened was the one with that watercolor label that I ended up buying because I loved it so much, and I actually convinced Kurt to buy one too. And I wonder now if that had a big significant portion of it too, because it did end up reminding me of like that really like mineral vitamin grain like and like crushed up sweet tart like note of like floor malted barley that I get a lot of times.
Mhm.
That's cool. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So Doug's correct here. They blend the malt and then mill it, but
Uh,
all the peat is from the Orkneys, and the reason for that is that they only want to use Orkney peat, which has a very different profile because it's only there's no trees on the Orkneys. It's only grass and heather, so it's a softer, sweeter peat than you would get from almost anywhere else in Scotland. But um, that makes more sense than blending the distillate for that purpose. All right, I think we're nearly there. Now, there is no cheeky third question tonight. So rather than there be a cheeky third question, I'm going to fire up the poll. I would encourage all of you in the chat to put your own cheeky third question into the chat, and we'll do our best to try to find those. But in the interim, I am going to fire up the poll here. Oh, he didn't even create a poll at all.
He didn't make a poll. He told us there was no poll.
I
oh,
thought he didn't create.
A poll.
See, I read that differently. I read that he didn't create a cheeky third question,
ah,
that we would have
No,
to use
he
that
is
ourselves.
protesting against the backlash of not having a third question last tasting by not doing a tasting. So we either need to step back or really give him two barrels. What?
Oh, that's bold. That's bold.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe in addition to putting your own cheeky third question into the chat, why not put why not put your favorites in the chat as well? Tom saying first, Glen Grant second, Imperial. No poll as in um, a question, not an inanimate object, Jeff. So maybe I'll start with you, Sean. Do you have favorites from tonight's lineup? I'll let you have three, and we'll go from there.
Okay. I think funny enough, I like that Old Orkney a lot. I think I'm actually gonna tie it at third. I was tossed between the Springbank and the Orkney for number three.
Mhm.
Uh, and honestly, I think I have to tie the Glen Grant and the Tomatin for one and two. I don't know if I could choose between both of those cases.
All right. So Sean waffled
Yep.
on on his top three. Sean, we like decision. We like firm, decisive action
Okay,
here.
okay. I'll get
No, no,
Glen
no,
Grant.
no, no, no. You've already had your turn. It's over. It's Harmony's turn now.
Okay, Sammy, I like your style. Your order's wrong. So Tomatin was my favorite. Orkney surprisingly was my second, and then the Glen Grant was my third, which
Okay.
I'm shocked by because I love Old Glen Grant. But great lineup tonight.
Curtis, do you want to give us your three favorites?
Love to. Number 3 would be the Old Orkney, and in some other lineups, it might have been shown higher for me. Really like, kind of nice to see Highland Park, something I should like. Number 2, the Springbank, as much as I think it'd be on the pedestal, it's not perfect, but it's absolutely my style. I really dig it. But unquestionably, that Tomatin stole the show. Kind of knocked my socks off as soon as I smelled it, as soon as I tasted it. And I'm not the biggest Tomatin fan, largely because of what they've done for OBs and that run of like just goopy, spicy sherry we had for so long. It's nice to be falling in love with proper Tomatin again. It's more
But like
just,
even they're 21, they're 25, the 30, 36, those are all great. It's
Mhm.
a lot of the young stuff that they've tinkered with to make it more presumably more marketable. And
And you remember that 21 they released that was like
the
blue
bourbon
label,
cask
exclusive and expensive, but it was all ex bourbon. It was beautiful.
is so good. Um, yeah, for me tonight, this is pretty easy. Tomatin, Glen Grant, and it was a toss-up, but I'm actually going to give the edge to the Springbank over the Imperial. But yeah, I agree. I think that Tomatin was heads and shoulders the best whiskey in the lineup tonight. And ironically, I think it's the only one that we haven't sold a single bottle of yet. But that again goes back to that idea that it's just, I think it's just not a sexy distillery. Like even when it's good, maybe it has something to do with the name. It's just there's nothing sexy about Tomatin. And if you've never been there, you really should go because it's to me it's such an interesting distillery in that it is not beautifully manicured. It's not like a pristine visitor experience. It's this kind of industrial site in the middle of nowhere, south of Inverness in the mountains, that once was the biggest distillery in Scotland, and they can't hide that, and like it's got its own cooperage. It had an eel pond for God's sake, and it's just in some ways it's not a beautiful site. But what I've always loved about Tomatin, I know I've said this many times before, is the authenticity of it. There's no facade. Glenfiddich is great, but it's this industrial site with a beautiful stone building and beautiful gardens. Like to me, it's the Vegas of distilleries. It's like this shell of kind of something beautiful and pristine that hides something, that's a bit more industrial. Tomatin doesn't hide anything, and they can't. And I've always loved it for that reason. And I agree. I think a lot of their younger, like their wine cask finishes, the sherry cask finishes, they're not great, but their distillate is beautiful, and especially at an old age, it can be incredible. So not really surprising to me that it um, stole the show for at least a couple of us here. So looking through other people's things here, um, you know, I think that's it. I don't know that I got a lot of other votes, but Noel rated Tomatin, Springbank, Tormore. Kelvin had Springbank, Old Orkney, Glen Grant, Tomatin, Glen Grant, Orkney for Sammy. Um, So yeah, I think there's some interesting similarities there in people's list. Tom says Glen Grant #1, Imperial #2. But yeah, fun tasting tonight. No Igor though. He did email me and I did email him the details, but unfortunately we missed him. I'm guessing he's jet lagged because I believe he was in Europe for a couple of weeks. So maybe he saw that and then fell asleep. Totally forgivable, especially if you've been in Europe. Great lineup tonight. If you've not bought samples for the Macbeth tasting next week, I highly encourage you to do it. I'm really excited about that lineup. Harmony and I and/or others may show up in Macbeth related garb. Don't hold us to that because that's a pretty bold pronouncement, but it's possible. I think we though Harmony should both learn a little bit of Shakespearean English, um, just for entertainment purposes. And I mean, Sean, you have probably the most Shakespearean beard/face of anyone in the store. I mean, you should probably be in on that tasting too.
Should
I
we
will. I will
read
try.
from?
All right.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
should
I
be.
yeah, I've got something at Cochrane like 4:15. I think I can still make it, but I'll do my best. Oh no,
Will?
do I work that? I'm at work
Do
Oh,
it at work.
because it's Remembrance Day and it's just me and I
oh.
think it's me and Jeff. I'll see if I can I'll work with my phone in the background and I'll
So
just
you
see what I
won't
can
be
do.
wearing like pantaloons and like Elizabethan era tights, is what
I'm
you're saying.
afraid not. No,
Okay.
sorry.
Well, he
Disappointing.
might wear the tights. We would just never know.
That's
Uh,
true. It's true. It's a tops world, not a bottoms world.
mhm.
Well, Harmony, Sean, Kurt, thank you for this. Everyone else, thanks for joining the tasting tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Fun range of whiskeys. I you know, I again I'm blown away that even I'm surprised that the Tomatin I think was the most interesting whiskey in tonight's lineup. And it's kind of fun when that happens when like it's not the one that people are thinking, like the Imperial or the Ben Nevis or the Springbank that steals the show. So fun range. I hope you all have a great rest of your night. We'll talk again soon and cheers.